Good afternoon. Welcome to the Chatham Select Board April 6, 2021 meeting. This meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording this meeting, please notify me. And I'm going to ask right now if you please mute your audio so everybody can hear the announcement. Thank you. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 23, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 134-208-476#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. For efficiency's reasons for while we're using this remote format, please mute your audio until called on, at which time for proper comments, you can use the Teams app, raise your hand feature, or if you're on a phone, you may speak out your name when I ask for public comment. And so also please disable your video until the appropriate time to present or comment. And remember that we are conducting a business meeting via this format. So we're going to do a roll call to establish that we have a quorum of the select board. And I'll go through that now. Board member Metters.
Present.
Board member Nicastro.
Present.
Board member Kokolis.
Present.
Board member Dykens.
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum tonight. Oh, and I'm present, obviously. Our first agenda item is to accept the March 30th, 2021 meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to accept them?
Madam Chair, it's Peter. I have a motion to accept the March 30th minutes of the board.
Do we have thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any of the typos, et cetera, you can email to Shauna, but are there any substantive changes to the meeting minutes that anybody needs to address?
Okay.
Great. All right, hearing none, then we're going to go ahead and take a vote to approve them, accept them. Select board member Metters.
Aye.
Board members Kokolis.
Aye.
I'm going to stutter tonight. Board member Nicastro.
Aye.
And board member Dykens.
Aye.
Chair says aye. Okay. Our next is public announcements and agenda items requests. And I thought it was important because we may have just to read these. We haven't read them in a while, just to remind folks of the policy. And so I'm just going to read it. Each board or each select board's meeting shall begin with public announcements and agenda item request following approval of meetings if applicable. This portion of the meeting shall not in its entirety exceed 20 minutes. Each recognized speaker during public announcements and agenda item requests shall keep his or her remarks to no more than 3 minutes. Generally, remarks that are to be considered appropriate for this portion of the meeting are those that do not encourage debate, but rather are more simple announcements, requests, or statements of interest. If a subject, in the opinion of the chair or the majority of its members, of the board members, would be better addressed as a future agenda item because it warrants public notice or debate, then the chair will restrict the comments and declare them out of order. Previous actions and/or deliberations of the select board are not appropriate for discussion during public announcements or agenda item requests. The chair of the Board of Selectmen shall have the discretion on whether to place a citizen taxpayer's requested item on the board's agenda. Any of the time limits are enforced at the discretion of the chair. Okay, got that out of the way. So I have a couple of announcements before I turn to everybody else. Again, we want to just remind everybody to save the date, April 15th, for the Monomoy Regional School District discussion on the Chatham Elementary School and its funding. Also, we have a huge agenda next week, so we're going to start the meeting at 5 instead of our usual time at 5:30. Also, let's just see if I got everything I needed. I think that's it for me. Any announcements or agenda item requests from the board? Seeing none. Any from the staff? How about the public participants, remote participants? Okay, all right. All right, let's do a little review of the meeting so that we know where we're at. We're going to do new business is a coronavirus update. It's a weekly update with the town manager and from the town manager and our director of natural resources. And then we will have public comments. And this is where the public can make comments on any of our agenda items. And tonight we have a few. Some of them are the articles reviewed for the 2021 annual town meeting, the Eldridge Public Library. We have a general bylaw amendment to the energy efficiency in town procurement of design services for capital facility projects. We have a new general bylaw amendment for energy efficiency in the town procurement of motor vehicles. We also will, you may comment on the general bylaw amendments to change the name of the board to select board. That would be a bylaw. And we have housing related special legislation, transfer fee warrant articles, and Nauset Beach agreement. Prior to us having our regular business agenda, which will be board discussion only, we will hold 2 public hearings. And that will be on as it attains to liquor licenses for Chatham Squire and Pate's Restaurant. We have noted in the agenda packet that there is an executive session, but we won't be needing to go into executive session tonight. Okay, so we will start with our coronavirus update from Dr. Bob. Welcome, Dr. Bob.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. So for tonight's coronavirus update, as of 5 o'clock this afternoon, we have 12,578 cases of COVID-19 on Cape. That is an increase of 39 cases from the previous day. And yesterday, the state reported 107 cases on the Cape, but that actually included 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, because the state did not do any reporting on Sunday for the Easter holiday. Cape-wide for Barnstable County, we are currently at 448 deaths, and that was an increase of 0 from the previous day. In Chatham, we currently have, since the pandemic began, we've had 309 cases and 28 deaths. And if you let me share my screen here. Can everybody see the monthly case counts? And that is since the pandemic began. So in March of 2020 through March of 2021. So in March, in January of this year, we had 115 cases. In February, we dropped down to 36. And in March, we had a slight bounce back up to 43. I think everyone is aware that the Cape is experiencing another surge in cases, primarily centered in the Mid-Cape region, but it is spreading throughout most of the Cape. And with last week's weekly public health report, 12 of the 15 towns on Cape Cod were either in the red or yellow zone. The only 3 towns that weren't were Provincetown, Truro, and Wellfleet. And Chatham, as of last Thursday's report, had bounced back up into the yellow zone after having been in the green zone the week before that. So we are clearly seeing this surge on the Cape, which apparently is tied to some of the variants that are now making their presence known quite substantially. The Cape As you probably remember, I think I reported last week or maybe the week before that, the Cape had the first reported case of the so-called P1 variant, or the Brazilian variant, in the Commonwealth. Was a resident of Barnstable County. And through last week, the Cape had about 88% of the P1 variant cases that were reported to the Commonwealth. There's substantially more cases of the so-called English variant, if you will, the United Kingdom variant, but they are not as prevalent on the Cape right now as the P1 variant is. And so the state has created a number of other testing locations on the Cape, temporary, primarily centered in the Mid-Cape area. And they also increased the amount of vaccine that the Cape received last week. And we expect that to go forward as the Cape deals with the increase in cases. In terms of age distribution of our Chatham cases, we're seeing pretty much the same thing we've seen the last couple of weeks, which is most of the cases that we're experiencing are in the younger demographic, if you will. So basically people under the age of 50. And in fact, in this week's reporting, today's reporting, 60% of the cases that we've had in Chatham, and we've had about 10 new cases since your meeting last week, but 60% of those cases have been in individuals under 39 years old. And that is consistent with what we're seeing throughout Massachusetts and around the country, that the current surges that are being experienced, or the elevated cases, are in the younger demographic, because right now, for most part, most states, they are not part of the eligible for vaccine. And so you can say things are smoothing out a little bit here in terms of the age distribution, because, the younger demographics are now starting to catch up, if you will, to some of the older demographics. And then, as I alluded to earlier, this is our 14-day average daily incident rate. We had that spike back in January and into February. We saw a substantial decline in the beginning of March. And in the last couple of weeks, there's been that upward trend as we're seeing, this surge on the Cape. And I expect that to be continuing probably for another couple of weeks at least, because these data are generally about a week behind, if you will. But we are starting to see a little bit of leveling off of the number of cases on the Cape and in the Commonwealth, although they are leveling off at a higher rate or a higher number than we were seeing in some of the other periods after we had declines and then things kind of leveled off. So, while it's great that they're leveling off, it's not necessarily good news that they're leveling off at higher rates than we were seeing before. And then just finally, let me show you where we are with vaccine, and this continues to be good news. And as I've mentioned before, this data is about 8 days old, but the state only reports the data every Thursday, and it's based on the data as of the previous Tuesday. So the upper graph is as of last Tuesday, March 30th. And then the bottom graph is the week before that, and I just show the two to show that we are making progress. And I also added some new lines in. There used to just be a line at the 50% mark, but I added vertical lines in red at the 25 and 75% mark as well, because I think it makes it a little bit easier to see the progress that's being made. And as of right now, or as of this data, roughly 99% of the residents of Chatham in the over 75 demographic had received at least one dose of the vaccine. And you can see that in the top graph, the top line. Keep in mind that the absolute numbers here are based on the 2010 census. That is the information the state's using. So those numbers may not, actual numbers may not be accurate. And that's why it's being reported as percent of individuals. And keep in mind, this is only for folks in Chatham that have gotten their vaccination in Massachusetts. If they're residents of Chatham and they're in Florida or Arizona, that would, and they've been vaccinated, that would not be reflected here as well. And then we are making
Dr. Bob, hold
increase.
on just a second, please.
Hi,
Please,
Paula.
if you're on the phone, please mute your phone. You can do that by doing *6. We're getting a lot of feedback, and I can see that there are several people that are on the phone that aren't muted. So please mute your phone. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, as you can see between the two graphs, we continue to make steady progress in the 65 to 74-year-old demographic. And that's just a reflection that was the second group that became eligible on an age basis. There was a pretty good jump in the 50 to 64-year-olds. They are getting close to 50% of that age group being vaccinated, as well as we're seeing an improvement in the 30 to 49-year-olds, and then, a slight uptick in the 20 to 29-year-olds. But technically, they're not eligible on an age basis yet, but they may be eligible under one of the other categories. And so that's why we've seen the increase there. And then obviously the 0 to 19-year-olds, the state doesn't report numbers if there's less than 30 individuals in that particular range. And right now, the vaccines are not approved for anyone over the age of 16. And as well, once the state reopens, or opens, not reopens, but opens vaccine eligibility up to everybody on the 19th of this month, we expect to see a steady increase in number in that younger demographic. So let me stop sharing. And then just a couple other things that I wanted to touch on because I know that they may be of interest to folks out in the community. We've gotten a number of inquiries relative to the variants, the P1 variant and others. And just so people understand that right now the state, and this is pretty much across the country as well, only about 1.5% of the PCR positive cases are being sent out for sequencing. So only about 1.5% of the thousands of PCR positives end up being sequenced either by the state or CDC or private labs. So that's an extremely small percentage of the total number of cases. So in all likelihood, the prevalence of the various variants is much more widespread than we anticipate or than we might be aware of. And the other thing that comes into play on the Cape, and especially in the outer Cape area, is they cannot sequence tests that were done with the antigen test. So they can only sequence from a PCR test. And right now, the antigen test is the prevalent test being used in the outer Cape area. And so unfortunately, none of those tests can be sent in for sequencing. So again, the prevalence of some of these variants may be much more widespread on the Cape than we actually know. So that just, again, supports the fact that it really doesn't matter whether it's a variant or the original strain. The three important things to keep doing are wearing a mask, social distance, and wash your hands or use hand sanitizer. And then just I wanted to remind folks that starting yesterday, individuals 55 years of age and older are now eligible for vaccinations, as well as those individuals with one or more certain medical conditions. And we have the link on the town's website to that list of what those medical conditions are. It has expanded substantially from what it previously was because the Commonwealth has now adopted the CDC list. So things like obesity are now on there, both type 1 and type 2 diabetes are on there, as well as a larger list of other medical conditions. So I would urge anyone to go ahead and review that list and determine, even if you're not 55 years or older, if you have one of those conditions, you are now eligible for vaccination. And then just again, everyone should have hopefully already signed up or pre-registered through the state's website for the state's 7 mass vaccination sites because they are using that quite efficiently. People are getting emails when they become eligible, and then they can go ahead and book an appointment. So with that, Shireen, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Bob. Always really informative. Peter, you have a question for Dr. Bob?
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Dr. Duncanson, on the V1 variant, I heard one news cast that said that there was one individual who came in contact with a whole bunch of others. Has been any contact tracing to either confirm that, or how, do we have an idea of how it got on the Cape?
Not specifically. We did have on our DPH call this afternoon, we did have the state epidemiologist on to talk, present some late information regarding the variants. There was an event in Barnstable. They're not quite ready to call it a super spreader event, but there was an event that took place in Barnstable that appears to be the beginnings of this, mini surge, if you will, in Barnstable. Now, whether or not, just because there's a prevalence of the P1 cases, that variant, whether or not it actually originated through that event or not, there's really no way to tell. It could have been from somewhere else. The information that we had was that the individual who was first reported to have the P1 variant on Cape had not traveled. So, that means theoretically they may have gotten it from somebody else, but there's really, at this point, it hasn't been traced back to an absolute origin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick follow-up.
Sure.
Dr. Bob, with the younger demographic getting the virus, how bad is it for them? Are there many of them going to the hospital, or is it as like it was before, not quite as bad? Although there are some.
It continues to be as it was before, and that's been one of the difficult things in dealing with the younger demographic. In general, they do not get the disease as severely as older folks. And so that's why, we've all seen the pictures of spring break in Florida and other places. I don't want to say they think they're immune, but because they know that chances of getting severe disease are significantly less, they tend not to do the things that they should be doing. But yeah, hospitalizations and deaths among the younger demographics are definitely lower because, they generally don't have, the underlying medical conditions and all the other things that, we saw last spring and summer when it was really hitting the, the older demographic much more severely. So yes, that's been consistent.
Good, thank you.
Okay, Jeff?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Bob, for a great report once again. So what percent of our population in Chatham, our Chatham residents, have been vaccinated? And do we know what that same percentage is kind of Cape wide? Are we ahead or behind the Cape in Chatham?
We're probably right about in line with the Cape. The Cape is actually doing pretty well when you look at the Cape versus the rest of the state, because, there's been a lot of efforts. I don't have, a total, if you will, of the number of Cape or Chatham folks, but you could see in those percentages, we're getting up pretty high in most of them, and it will only grow. And like I say, this data is already, 9 days old. So, right. But that's unfortunately just the way the state reports it.
Bob, I'm sorry, Jeff.
Sorry. No, thanks.
Yep. Bob, do those numbers come from the county or do they come from the state DPH?
No, they come right from the state DPH.
Okay, so if you got back somewhere off the Cape, then your number would count.
It would still be in there. Yep, it's whatever zip code. Basically, it's all sorted by zip code. So whatever zip code you put in when you went to get your shot, that's what it's attributed to.
Yeah, good.
All right, any other questions from the board for Dr. Bob? Okay, how about the remote participants? Anybody on the phone? Okay, Elaine, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question, Bob, about that. I was going to ask how they identified the variants, and you said it's random with the PCR. They pull out about 1.2%, and then they test those for the variant.
Yeah, what they do is they randomly pick a select number of the tests, and then they send them out for genetic sequencing, each of the variants, and that's how the variants are identified. Each of those has its own unique genetic signature. And so, when they send it out, they're not looking just for the P1 variant, but basically they're looking for all the different variants that are out there. We talk about the Brazilian variant, the United Kingdom variant, the South African variant. There's now 2 variants that have been identified in California. There's been a variant that's been identified in New York City. So, and this is common with viruses. They are continually undergoing mutations. Your hope always is the mutation makes the virus less transmissible and less deadly. But unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way. Some of these variants do appear to be more transmissible, meaning easier to transmit from person to person. The jury is still out, though, in terms of whether or not these variants are actually more lethal, if you will. But they are definitely easier to transmit, some of them. So, but yeah, they unfortunately, there just is not enough capability to gene sequence every, positive test. DPH did report today that they are working with the Broad Institute and others in Massachusetts to increase the number of genetic sequencing tests they'll be able to run over the next week or so. Right now it's like 700 a week, and they expect to be up to 1,000 by next week, and then, possibly 2,000 by the week after that. But there'll never be enough capacity to sequence every positive test. And so that's why, you just always have to assume these are more widespread than we might think. And in the case, of Barnstable, because we knew we had the P1 variant here, some of the genetic sequencing that's gone on over the last week was targeted to the population where we might expect to see that variant. So, they targeted more tests in the Barnstable, Yarmouth area because that's where it was kind of centered, as opposed to randomly picking tests all across the Cape. And that tends to skew the data a little bit, but it gives the public health authorities a better sense of exactly, how prevalent it is in a particular area, which at the time was the concern.
Just one other question. Did we just recently start doing the sequencing, or has that been from the beginning? Or is it possible that this has been here for some time and we just didn't know it?
Sequencing has been going on for months because of we knew there was the UK variant, we knew there was the South African variant. Those were the first 2. And so sequencing started with them, and then the Brazilian variant came along. So there has been sequencing going on for several months in Massachusetts and around the country. And that's how the first incidence of the Brazilian variant was detected in the county, was kind of that random, checking to see if something popped up.
Great, thank you very much.
Welcome. Okay. Any other remote participants like to ask Dr. Bob a question? All right, thank you, Dr. Bob. We'll see you later down the agenda. Okay. Our next is our town manager, Jill Goldsmith, for an update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have nothing further to update the board.
Okay. That was quick. All right. Well, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to our public comments, and this is the time that you may comment on our business agenda items. The public hearings that we're going to have, that's separate from the business agenda items, and the sequencing is different, but the public comments will be accepted to address our business agenda items, which again are the annual town meeting article reviews and our Nauset Beach agreement. So also we have, because we have the transfer fee discussion on, and last week we had folks from out of town speak, representatives from the realty lobbying groups, the local organizations, that I'm going to ask you to please state your name, and if you are not from Chatham, your affiliation. So we'll accept public comments on our agenda items. And Mr. Warshafter, you're going to be able to speak to your comments on the energy at the time of that meeting. So if your hand's up for your energy amendments, you can wait until we get into the discussion. Okay, so thank you. a little confusing, but we'll make sure that people know that going forward, where they place their discussion, their comments. Comments from Mr. Levitt. Rick? You need to unmute, Rick.
Thank you, Shireen. I just want to add my support for the real estate transfer fee. Chatham's Housing Trust Fund needs a long-term, reliable source of revenue, adequate for the purpose of spurring both public and private sector investment in affordable and attainable housing. Our town's current housing shortage has been building for a generation or more. It will take a generation or more to correct it. Restoring Chatham's historic diversity as a community of working families, as well as a retirement and summer resident community. Chatham's success in attracting retirees and summer residents needs to be matched in attracting and keeping a diverse population of working families here in Chatham. The town will need to organize and staff for the long term to accomplish its housing goals using reliable housing trust fund revenues coming in over the years. Appropriate mixed income, affordable and attainable housing sites here in Chatham will need to be acquired and developed or redeveloped. Incentives will need to be offered to housing developers to invest their private sector capital to achieve the town's long-term housing goals. And finally, providing a reliable source of revenue for Chatham's Housing Trust Fund is the most efficient and effective means of accomplishing our long-term housing goals. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Okay. Elaine Gibbs. Go ahead, Elaine.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is on the transfer tax as well. It's as far on February 16th, the agenda item was for a real estate transfer tax, and somehow that's morphed into a fee. And I don't recall any vote being taken by the select board to change the terminology. And I think it's important here. Liquor licenses, fishing licenses, transfer station and beach passes and permits, they're all fees because they're applied for and they're optional. But just like the meals tax and the sales tax, this property transfer tax is mandatory for a certain class of people. And I think that should be the test. It is not optional unless they decide they can't buy the house because of it. It is called a tax by the state and by the county. It is a stamp tax is required. So I think that it's misleading to the public to call it a fee rather than a tax because it sets a bad precedent because the next time there's a reason found to collect money from a particular group of people, we should not be calling it a fee. It is a tax. It's not optional. So I hope you will consider calling it what it is because it's not a fee. It's a tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments tonight from the remote participants? Okay, we see Carolyn, and I believe it's Carolyn McClellan, who is the chair of our Community Housing Partnership. Carolyn.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. I just want to, I guess I echo Mr. Levitt's wonderful review of what you're doing with the transfer tax or fee, whatever you want to call it. I'm not that hung up on the terminology. It's definitely a positive step Chatham is taking in dealing with its housing problem, and you folks at the select board are dealing with our housing issues in an assertive way for probably the first time. Hopefully it's not too late and we can get some progress done. Back to the term fee or tax, I opt for membership. Maybe if you called it a membership to the 2 Million Plus Club in Chatham, it might be more palatable. But again, I'm not that interested in what you call it. I just want to make sure we have a revenue stream to help local families stay here in Chatham. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolyn. Are there any other remote participants who would like to speak to any of our agenda items tonight? Anybody on the phone who would wish to just call out their name? Okay. All right. That's it for our public comment period then. And we are going to move on to our public hearings. And at this time, we'll address the hearings notices one at a time. So I'm going to ask Clerk Metters to read the public announcement in regard to the Chatham Square.
All right. Town of Chatham, public hearing notice. Notice is hereby given that the Chatham Select Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 6th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. remotely through the Microsoft Teams platform to consider an application for alteration of premise to the annual all alcoholic beverages license for the Chatham Square, 487 Main Street. All interested parties are encouraged to participate through the link at the posted Board of Selectmen, Select Board meeting agenda. Signed, members of the Select Board.
Thank you, Corey. We want to note that the licensee name on the application is One Drop Operating LLC. I guess we'll just say commonly known as the Chatham Squire. Is there any representatives from the One Drop Operating on the call tonight?
Yep, you got Todd Roll on the call.
I'm
and
sorry,
a few
can you
others.
speak up, please?
Yeah,
Whoever's
hi,
gonna,
Shereen.
go ahead.
Hi, Shereen. You got Todd Roll on the call from
Hi.
the Chatham Squire.
Hi. Would you like to speak to what your request is this evening?
Yeah, I mean, we're asking for a catering license, so we can, host or, provision parties off-site.
Okay. It looks to me.
We're doing it under. Yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm very sorry. I thought you finished. Go ahead.
No, I mean it's essentially we're using the Squire mobile camper that we've retrofitted, and we're going to be using that, as a catering, vehicle to bring it out to people's yards, and and provision for parties, both alcohol and food.
Okay. So Shauna, in the application, the application request is an amendment, change, or alteration of premises information. Can you clarify that we're all on the same track with this application?
Sure. In order for the Squire to obtain a state catering license, which is granted by the state and not by the local licensing authority, they need to have a separate storage area for the alcohol that's going to be used for the catering license. So in essence, this application is really just to remove from the Squire restaurant's licensed description the area that the alcohol for the catering license will be stored.
Okay. All right, Shauna, I have a question. Is there any regulations in regard to a required area for storage for something like this, or is it just based on the business's capacity?
Based on the business's capacity and what's adequate to store their needs.
Okay, all right. I'm going to ask some questions, Tom, from the Board of Selectmen. So we're going to start with Dean. Dean? I think you have to unmute, Dean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for Shauna initially. Shauna, are they required to, are the licensees required to keep the alcohol rooms under lock and key?
Yes, they are secured storage areas, yes.
Okay. And then a question for the applicant, and I didn't know if it was Todd Earl. I didn't get the name.
Yeah, it was Todd.
It is Todd.
It's Todd.
Yeah, Todd, what are the plans? I know this is a little bit broader than your application, but what are the Squire's plans for the upcoming season? Are you planning to reopen the indoor seating? I don't think you've reopened it yet. I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, yeah, we're opening in 2 weeks from today.
Okay, and are you going to have outdoor seating as well?
Yeah, the plan is to keep the outdoor seating and, to have indoor seating as well, whatever the regs will allow us to have.
Yeah, and just one last question. How successful were you last season, last summer, with the outdoor seating and the limitations on indoor seating?
It was, I mean, the outdoor seating was the preference for people. So, you know, as people would come to the hostess stand, which I stood in it for a couple of weekends, you know, they typically request outside. I mean, some people would want to go inside, but if outside was available, you know, they'd ask for outside.
I guess I did have a final.
So, you know, yep.
I'm sorry, I jumped on your words.
No, so it just turned out to be a you know, a good alternative for us and for them.
I know that recently the state made it possible for food service workers to be vaccinated. What are you seeing in your experience in terms of that happening among servers? Others?
We're trying to get everybody vaccinated as quickly as possible. We had a couple employees get vaccinated yesterday. One got vaccinated today, the first shot. I'm getting vaccinated next week, and we're just trying to encourage people to get vaccinated because it works. And you know, it's you know, I think it's encouraging. You know, you can encourage, but you know, part of me says maybe you should require, but I don't think you can. You know.
Do you think that's going to happen throughout the food service and restaurant industry? What are you hearing from your associations?
I don't know. I have no idea. You know, what's going to be required, what isn't. You know, if as an employer I can require my employees to get vaccinated, I will. You know, but I don't think I can. I think it's just a matter of encouraging people. And if the state regulation comes down and says that you have to be vaccinated to work in the restaurant industry, great.
Good. Well, thank you for this information. Thank you for the information. I'm happy to hear the Squire is going to reopen. I wish you a good season. Thank you.
I know just for your information, Todd, and for also for Jamie, I think Edwards, who's on the call too. I think the county's working on a program to dedicate some money or some resources to food service workers as far as vaccinations are concerned in the near future. More to come very soon, from what I understand. Dr. Bob, your hand's up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Shireen, Judy and I actually had a meeting yesterday with the folks at Outer Cape Health Services. And then we subsequently sent out emails to all the food establishments in Chatham, as well as those in the hospitality industry, because we're now able to work with them because they're getting a special federal allotment of vaccine, and it's being targeted to the food service workers in the hospitality industry on Cape. So we sent that information out. We're getting information back from various restaurants and all, how many people they still have that need the vaccine. And then our hope is, and our plan is, we'll actually be able to hold those vaccine clinics in Chatham. So folks won't have to drive to Four Seas or someplace else, but it'll be right in Chatham to make it that much easier. So that's already in the works. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob, for the update. Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve the request for the alteration of premises that has been made by this applicant.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. We haven't heard from the public. If there's anybody in the public that would like to comment on this application, you can raise your hand now. If not, okay, we'll take a vote. Let's just go through. Peter?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Okay, thank you. Good luck this season, Todd. We wish you well.
Oh,
luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. All right. Have a good evening. All right, our next is for Pate. So Corey, would you read the announcement, please?
Sure. Town of Chatham public hearing notice. Notice is hereby given that the Chatham Select Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, August 6th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. remotely through the Microsoft Teams platform to consider an application for change of manager to the seasonal all alcoholic beverage license for Pate's Restaurant 1260 Main Street. All interested parties are encouraged to participate through the link in the posted Board of Selectmen, Select Board meeting agenda. Signed, members of the Select Board.
Okay. Thank you, Corey. Again, the licensee name is TPJ Restaurant Group LLC, and this is a change of manager, which we've gone through pretty routinely before. But Jamie Edwards, would you like to speak to this?
Absolutely. Very excited on starting this new year, being one of the only restaurants that opened up during a pandemic, and we did very well, and our feedback was amazing. Our customers are so grateful, and we just reopened, and especially during Easter, we did that just because we could. And I'm telling you, the outcome and the next level of what we got coming in, the bigger place, inside air tech breathing situations are going to be amazing. I wish we had outside, but we don't. But we have a great team, and it's going to be a crown jewel at Chatham, and we're all really excited for it. And, we did it right last year. We kept you all safe, and we want to keep it going.
Okay. So this names you as the proposed manager,
Yes.
new manager. Okay. All right. Any questions for Jamie? Dean?
Thank you. I just want to ask Jamie, what is Pate's doing about vaccinating the staff?
Jamie,
There's
maybe
actually
I can jump in real quick,
Sure,
Jamie.
Tom.
Sorry. I'm Tom Johnson. I'm the managing member.
Oh,
And
hi, Tom.
How are you? Sorry, I should have notified, but Jamie's perfectly capable of doing this. I just wanted to sort of interject that, we're just reconnecting with our staff to start. And so we're communicating our desire that they get both tested and vaccinated. So it's sort of top of the pile for us. And we last year were pretty fortunate because we didn't have to close down. And part of that is luck. It's not disparaging statement about anybody else that had to. I think a lot of it is luck, but we made significant changes to our ventilation and invested in a virus bacteria killing system that is used in labs around the world, and communicated regularly with staff about behaviors. So we are certainly investigating all options for all our staff to get vaccinated as soon as possible. It's a priority for us.
Great.
Thank you. Good luck this season.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
No.
Okay. You entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the change in management at Pate's Restaurant as requested by the applicant.
Second?
Second.
Is there any discussion from the public? Any comments? Okay, hearing none. All right, we'll take a vote. Peter? You need to unmute, Peter.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Okay, approved. So good luck. Good luck with your new position, and carry on. Hope you have a
Thank
good
you.
season.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
All right. Okay, so that is that for our public hearings. And we thank you both. Okay. Our next is a business agenda items, and our first is a review for articles is the Eldridge Public Library Capital Project fiscal warrant article for shell repair, site safety, and access improvements. And I don't know if Terry's on the call, Alex is, and also the library director, Amy Andreassen's on as well. So, Terry?
Yes, good
Or is it
evening.
Alex? Hi, Terry.
Yep. Hi. Yeah, so in your meeting package, I did put together a little bit of a chronology or history for backup for this request, leading up to putting the warrant together for the June 22nd annual town meeting. Sort of not through a wrench, but changed our sequencing on requests for certain projects and the way things were proceeding. So with three different components at the library. The first being the site master plan project, which was funded and underway, and then kind of a large request we had in as well for shell repairs, which those two projects were broken up, and the roof portion of the shell project was prioritized to move forward. So that was funded through use of also reallocation of money from the site master plan project, with the intent on coming back for that at a later town meeting. So this request is essentially refunding the implementation portion of the site master plan project, basically the safety and access improvements, and then also the remainder of the shell repairs minus the roof project. So it's come back now in a form as a composite article that includes those two primary components. And in the staff report, we have the the budget breakdown on the two specific components, and this is proposed at the project is estimated to cost $1,111,800. This is a little bit less than what was carried in the we had a placeholder value in the original capital request this year, but similar to the what you did see on the COA project. Again, that had a higher contingency at that point. It was basically put in around that same time frame. So we've been able to look at that and reduce the contingency and escalation for this one as well. Not, but again, it's savings over the number that you might have seen in the first generation of the capital plan.
Okay, all right. I guess I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions or comments. Dean serves on the as the liaison to the library, and so I'm going to, out of respect, have him speak first, if Peter doesn't mind. In order, okay, great. All right, go ahead, Dean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Peter. Yes, I am a liaison to the library board, and as Terry mentioned, this was essentially deferred from the 2020 annual town meeting when we were streamlining the warrant. We took $440,000 away to that had been previously approved for this project to fund the roof repairs. And as indicated in the memo, this is largely a project that is designed to improve safety and to enhance access. It's not a mere landscaping project, although there is some landscaping associated with it. So I know the library board is very enthusiastic and would like to see this go forward. I know the library director is on the call, as you mentioned. I don't know whether she's going to have any comments, but I enthusiastically support this. I did want to ask Alex a question as to where the funding was going to come from this. Is it all going to be free cash? Is some of it coming from the tax levy? It looks like some of it might be. I don't know. But I'm prepared to offer a motion later on if that's okay.
Alex, can you comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We've proposed this to come strictly from the tax levy. So all the funding is from the tax levy, and as noted in the agenda report, we factored that into the projected tax rate. And again, the increase to the tax levy is 0.97%. As programmed for FY 2022, and that does include this funding.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Let's see. Peter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me echo that I support this, and just two comments. One is, I think, and everyone has seen this. Maybe not everyone out in the town, but the roofing will get started in pretty soon, and it'll go through May. And I think that's outstanding. And I remember this project coming up, and I think in some ways I mentioned landscaping, and I agree that it's more than just landscaping. And I'm thankful that the cost has come down, because at the time we looked at this a year ago, We thought it was going to go up, but we thought it was the best way to handle it, and it worked out well. And that's all I guess I'll have to say. It's just it's nice that we can be able to do this.
It
Thank
is. I just have a housekeeping issue, folks. We have a lot of paper noise tonight. So from the board, and I'm just going to ask if the board would mute themselves if they're not speaking as well. It'll be helpful tonight. Thank you. All right. Any other comments from the board? Jeff?
Yeah, I'm just super supportive, very, very supportive of this. Long overdue. Everybody's waited. They've deferred the shell repairs on the roof. I think it's going to start pretty soon, but wonderful asset in the middle of town. So I'm very supportive.
Thank you. Right. Any other board comments?
No, I'm fully supportive of this. Let's move it forward.
Great. Okay. So Amy, the director of the library, is on. I didn't know if she had anything she'd like to add to the conversation this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Amy Andreasen, Director of the Eldridge Polk Library. All I can add is we are so thankful for your support, and on behalf of the library and the Board of Trustees, we do support both projects and hope that they go through. And the roof project did start today. They have put up the scaffolding, so it's on its way. So thank you for that.
Great, thanks. I just want to remind everybody of how old this building is. And if you go on the Eldridge website, they have a library history. And I encourage everybody to go on to eldridgelibrary.org and read about the history, because the building's beautiful and it's old, built back in the 1800s. And it's just one of Chatham's most outstanding architectural assets. Dean?
I was going to offer a motion. Yes, I just want to point out it's the 125th anniversary of the Eldridge Public Library. So,
oh, wow.
And there's a special page on that, as Amy can attest. And I did learn that I should have known this from the coloring, but the foundation of that library building was built with Quincy granite, which is a very distinctive gray. So that's why it stood so well all these years. So Madam Chair, I move that the Select Board place this article for the Eldridge Public Library shell repairs, site safety and access improvements at 564 Main Street on the warrant for the annual town meeting 2021.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. If there's no further questions, we'll take a vote. Okay. Dean?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Okay. All right. And the chair says aye. Almost forgot.
Madam Chair.
Vote to recommend. Yes.
Madam Chair, I move that the board recommend the approval of this article to the annual town meeting upcoming.
Okay. A second.
Second.
Okay. If there's no further questions, we'll take a vote. All right. Jeff?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
The chair says aye. All right. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Amy, and Alex for the information. And this has been approved and on the warrant. You can check that one off, Jill.
Thank you.
Okay. The next is, again, Terry. And this is, I'm sorry, Terry, just give me a second.
Oh, that's okay.
This is a new general bylaw amendment, energy efficiency in town procurement of design services for capital facility projects. And this was proposed by the Energy Committee. And I believe the chair, Bob Werschafter, is on as well. So Terry, you want to give us an overview?
Sure. And in your package, I had a very quick overview of excuse me, of both requests actually for the evening. So with the first being the energy efficiency in town procurement of design services for capital facilities projects, and then energy efficiency in town procurement of motor vehicles. So what the commentary I had in here, and I'm sure Chairman Werschafter will expound on that a little bit, is basically just pointing out the really the goals of these bylaws are focused on obviously making sure that energy efficiency measures in the first request is that as part of the process, they are incorporated into the design services to basically make sure that we have the most energy efficient buildings and providing the most long-term savings. So I don't know if you want to, because I think the way I have the agenda, doing each article individually. But with that, I would, defer to the chairman of the Energy Committee to expound on their request.
Okay, and that's fine. We'll have Bob. Would you like to speak?
Sure, this is Bob Werchafter. I just want to say that the town of Chatham has considered energy efficiency in all of its previous projects since I've been on the Energy Committee. But this formalizes the process and brings it to an earlier stage in the design process. So I would point out that the current project has a budget. The Council on Aging project, there was a budget, and it's based on basically energy efficiency at the building code level. So any additional expenses that would be needed to make a lifetime economic choice that was lower than the code would require that additional money may be needed to do that. And it would be better if that was known at the beginning of the process. Now, I think for the Council on Aging, and from everything that I've seen, that in fact it may not have an incremental capital cost to do most of the energy efficiency that we would want to be doing in Chatham. And that is because you make the building more efficient and you can reduce the expenses for HVAC and other equipment. So we will be doing that for this project, but the warrant would then make it a formal process in the future.
Peter, do you want to take over? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. This is Peter. I'm the liaison to the Energy Committee. I was going to make just a couple of comments on this. As Bob mentioned, even before he was on the Energy Committee, we were doing a considerable amount of work looking at making a long-term energy efficiency. The question, that some people may have is, how much is this going to cost? Will it really cost us a lot of money? We've been doing it, and it really hasn't. And it's for government buildings. They'd say that it might not. It provides an option up front to say, okay, we need to do 2 or 3 things and to make sure that we're energy efficient through the life of the building. And I would say, well, we'll talk about the next one next. I can't. Well, anyway, are there any comments from the any questions or comments from the board?
Good.
Okay. Hearing none, can we have a motion to place on the warrant?
Peter, is Corey,
Yeah.
I guess. I move that we place the general bylaw amendment, energy efficiency and town procurement of design services for capital facility projects on the warrant for the 2021 annual town meeting.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay. Madam Chair, welcome back.
I'm sorry, I totally, I didn't realize I was muted, and I had disabled my video, and I had no idea, and I'm talking and I'm like, what is going on here? I'm really sorry, everyone. I have been listening, so I do have some questions before we take a vote, okay? And I'll let you finish the procedure. Jill or Alex, as it stands right now, I mean, we're looking at, costs increase, and I understand the bigger picture could be potential savings, but are we in a, are we positioned to be able to take this on right now with some of the projects that we have going forward? That's just a particular question. I don't know if either one of you could answer that.
Well, Madam Chair, I think the only project that this would apply to would be the Council on Aging, and that would be looking to go out for bid after January 2022. So, or possibly before. I don't know. I mean, other towns, like the town of Brewster, has this type of net zero as a policy. So without having to cost out and really get into the details for the COA project, I don't know what the impact is. I do know that we've always been committed to energy efficiency and looking beyond the stretch code for the building code. But at this point, I just don't know what the fiscal impact would be.
So I guess that's what my bigger picture, my bigger question was, why haven't we started out with a policy? And I mean, we have, put this together, and I think we've done really well with the town. I'm just really concerned about where we're at with costs and things, whether this is going to be a bigger impact than the town could actually take on. That's my concern on approving the bylaw right now, or the change of the change. I don't know if anybody else has a comment on that. Bob?
Yes, well, I just would point out that this warrant only is to the cost of adding an economic analysis of what a net zero building would cost over the lifetime compared to the standard building specs that we now have. So its costs would be very small, and $2,000 additional money, most of which at this point, for the upcoming project, the Energy Committee, because I'm on it and because of the availability of Cape Light Compact, most of the costs of that would be absorbed either in free labor from me or in assistance from Cape Light. So I don't really think there will be much, outlay if we pass this bill. Now, whether that then suggests that there is a option out there that would potentially cost more in the beginning but save money over the lifetime is then a decision that you will have to make as a board, but that's not what is on the warrant here.
Okay. All right. I got it.
Good.
All right.
Go
ahead, Jill.
If I could just add, we do use the services of the Cape Light Compact with our buildings. They did provide assistance with us with the last building, the fire station, of energy efficiencies, and we looked at geotherm. So we definitely do partner with them on our projects, and we appreciate their assistance.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I'll finish this out.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair. Okay, before I go to Terry, I'll just let you as the representative on Cape Light Compact. Not only do they support looking at what energy efficiency is needed, they also provide funding back to do that, to raise the level. So there's a difference. So if there's a much more energy efficient, let's say HVAC system, we pay for the first part and then we get support for the rest. Terry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that was going to be my point, and we also have additional capacity now for funding through green communities as well for things that might make sense to implement.
Okay, thank you. Now we have a motion and a second. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman. Peter?
What? Yes. Yeah, Dean.
It's Dean. I just wanted to go back to the question of the Council on Aging, which was considered today before the Finance Committee, and there was a question posed about solar energy, and I guess there is a contingency in the dollar amount. But if this bylaw were to be adopted this June and approved by the Attorney General, do we have any idea what the fiscal impact on the Council on Aging project might be? Terry or Jill or Alex, if she's on? I understand what Bob was saying earlier about this really is not a mandate to adopt any particular plan.
Terry.
It is a directive to do an analysis or to do this compliant design recommendation.
Terry has a comment. I see your hand raised.
Yeah, so if I can, and so just to, along those points, so there would be some additional fee required, basically to develop the narrative. So through the design process, once, if funding is obtained, one of the first steps or things you do is develop actually the narrative on what type of systems you're going to be using, those types of things. So as I think Bob indicated, that it would be slightly expanded over what we'd be doing. So there would be some additional design costs. When I say design costs, fees for design, might be on the order, and I'm just, projecting, $5,000, just, for 5 to 10,000 for some additional time and research that could probably be easily absorbed in the contingency we have right now. But, as we were talking, and I think Select Board Member Colas was indicating, if the results of that analysis, recommended and it made fiscal sense for adding additional cost to the to the project, we could seek offsets for those, and again, if they made fiscal sense. So if that helps, gives a context of what, and obviously there's the potential for the long-term savings, but there would be some, some cost if we needed to do some different analysis. But I think what we would always expect too, just like we've done with all our projects, is we would always look to Cape and Vineyard Electric Collaborative for opportunities for solar once we get the building in place, and continue to put projects in for consideration as we move along. So any opportunities where we could do that at essentially no cost to the town, that's, I'm anticipating we'd be doing that same thing for solar here as well.
So I guess I just wanted to ask, is your $5,000 to $10,000 guesstimate, I'll call it that, does that include both the compliant design recommendation and the evaluation of an alternative design recommendation comparatively that's called for in the proposed bylaw? So all that preliminary.
Yeah, so doing that kind of review, but like I said, I can't speak to, what would be identified as a result of those studies, what those costs would be.
Yeah, I understand that. We're not talking about the actual cost of implementing a recommendation. Yeah, I'm just talking about what this bylaw is calling for, because I wouldn't want to jeopardize the Council on Aging project by hugely increasing the cost of it, but it doesn't sound like this is going to do that. I appreciate the chair bringing this the issue up. Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Let's have a vote. Select Board Member Dykens.
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis.
Aye.
Select Board Member Dean Nicastro.
Aye.
Select Board Member Metters.
Aye.
And the Vice Chair says aye. Thank you very much. We need a motion to approve or to support.
So moved.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Having none, okay. Select Board Member Metters. I can't say that all at once.
Aye.
Select Board Member Dykens.
Aye.
Select Board Member Nicastro.
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis.
Aye.
Vice Chair says aye. Thank you. And now we move on to, let me hand it off to the chair.
Yeah, I can take it from here. Sorry about the mix-up. Okay, Terry, this is for the procurement of, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so similar to the article that we just reviewed and discussed, this would be again a similar formalization or incorporation of kind of policy that we are already implementing to the maximum extent practicable, but this would just make this part of the general bylaws.
All right, any comment, Peter?
And with that, I don't know if Bob,
Yeah, Madam Chair, just to reiterate, the town has been doing this, and the town manager has been taking this on for the last, I don't know, 4 years or 5 years. Energy Committee has been pushing it. I remember asking Bob Shafter, how come we're doing this? We're already doing it. And he commented to me that he's told that to the rest of the Cape and that this just formalizes the process. That's fine with me. He got 2 members to the board because of this, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Dean?
Yeah, I just think there is a word left out in paragraph B in the second line. In the second line, it says commercially available zero emission vehicle. I think the word that should be inserted after vehicle and before the word would.
Okay.
Vehicle that would meet. That's it.
All right. Bob, do you have any comments?
No,
As a
I mean,
committee chair.
this is really what we are doing. It would just sort of require first choice be a zero emission vehicle. If that wasn't available, then that would be a plug-in. And there is always the provision at the bottom for an emergency procurement for any town, organization that decided that it was either not cost effective or that there wasn't a suitable vehicle to meet their needs, or if it was an emergency purchase and they didn't have time to find an electric vehicle. But so it doesn't bind us to buying every vehicle being electric, but it does make it the first consideration, which I think is important.
All right, great. Thank you. Any comments, further comments or motions or a motion?
Yeah,
Jeff?
Madam Chair, this is Peter.
Nope, Jeff.
No, I was just going to move to place, but Pete, if you want to do that.
Okay,
fuck you,
yeah,
man.
go ahead.
Move to
All right,
place.
we have a move to place. I didn't know if you had a
Second.
comment. Second, all right. All right, all right, any further discussion? And let's take a vote. All right, Dean,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Cory,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
chair says aye. All right, thank you. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Terry.
Move to recommend. Go ahead,
A
Peter.
vote to
All right,
recommend.
thank you.
We don't have vote to recommend. Second, vote to recommend. Motion.
So moved.
Okay, thanks. No one said it. Second.
Yep, second.
Okay, let's take a vote unless there's further comment. All right, Jeff,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Cory,
Aye.
chair says aye. All right. Thank you. Again, thank you, Bob
Thank you,
and Terry.
guys. All right.
Thank you, Jill, for
Thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you.
okay. All right, so this is, next is a general bylaw amendment, and this is just a continuation in the process of changing to select board. So on the 13th, Governor Baker signed our special act, House 5234 into law, officially amending our town's home rule charter to change the name of the town's chief executive authority from Board of Selectmen to Select Board. And so this article is set up to amend the general bylaw to complete the name change. I don't know if there's any comments or anything as we go forward, or if anybody, Jill, has anything to add to this or not, but if anybody just wants to go ahead and make a motion.
Madam
Yes,
Chair.
so as you said, Madam Chair, this will change the general bylaws throughout the entire bylaw, substituting the Board of Selectmen with the Select Board.
Right. Even though we've been using it since the inception of the, it's good practice. All right, motion.
Madam Chair. I move that we place the general bylaw amendment change to select board on the warrant for the annual town meeting 2021.
Okay, second.
Second.
All right, and unless there's further discussion, we'll take a vote. Okay, Peter,
Aye.
Cory,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
chair says aye. Vote to recommend.
Madam Chair, I moved that we recommend this bylaw for approval to the annual town meeting 2021.
Thank you, Dean. Do we have a second?
Second.
No further discussion, then we'll take a vote. Jeff,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Cory,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
chair says aye. All right, that one can be checked off too. All right, so we have our housing-related special legislation, transfer fee warrant article review. I think Katie's on, and then Jeff wanted to speak to some of the changes that he's been working on since our last meeting, which was, gosh, I don't know, April 2nd or whatnot. And know if Katie wanted to speak to it, and then Jeff, or if Jeff wants to go right. I don't know if Katie's even here.
Can you see me, Madam Chair?
She's here.
No.
She's here.
I can't see you.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Let's see. But you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so as you'll recall, this item was before you most recently, I believe, on March 23rd. And based on comments, it was decided that it would be that further revisions would be made. Town Council has worked on those comments and we provided the board with a redlined draft pointing out the changes for your review. That's
Okay.
all I have.
Thank you. Jeff, you want to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Catherine. Listen, I just want to thank the board's forbearance and their willingness to have this remanded back for some reviews and some edits. I had a lot of feedback from board members and from town council and from Jill. So anyway, I'm just going to briefly go through the kind of the major changes. There's been some wording changes, some references to a housing fund rather than naming both potential housing trust funds that we had throughout the document before. We just referenced one housing fund, which refers really to any special purpose fund or funds authorized and established pursuant to the changes we might make going forward in our bylaw request change. So that's kind of just a cleanup for language, but instead of referring to two different funds, we're referring to a housing fund, if you will. There were questions about where funds would go and who would be managing them, and the town treasurer would be receiving funds. And upon consultation with direction from town boards, that the town board that would then be authorized, which would be this housing fund, whichever one we finally anoint, they'd be authorized to take care of the funds along with the treasurer, and would divvy up those funds into either affordable or attainable based on the good thoughts of that board, our housing fund, if you will, in working in concert with the needs of the community and with our town manager and perhaps the board as well, but not a formal way with the board, but certainly we would have input. So that's there was some direction desired there, voiced by members of the board last time we met. The most, I think, important change that was voiced by Selectman Metters and Selectman Castro, and very appropriately so, was relative to an interfamilial transfer of property between parties. So we defined, I think, more simply what an interfamilial transfer would be, and it's defined in Section 4N, parties of the following relationships: current spouses, parents and their children or stepchildren, between full siblings, and where the grantor transfers the real property to be held in a revocable or irrevocable trust, where at least one of the designated beneficiaries is a parent, full sibling, child, or stepchild of the grantor. There are many of these revocable and irrevocable trusts that are set up, and we wouldn't want to transfer property into one of those be subject to the fee. The other edit I'll refer to is in Section 7. The clerk is the town officer or office that will notify purchaser and seller of any failings or any penalties or and any notifications that need to occur as a result of the assessment of this fee. And then any appeal would go to the select board. So that's a change that we've codified. I think it was unclear as to where appeals would go. It said town before, and now it reads select board. So we cleaned up the language with respect to the clerk and the select board. And then all the references to, both the housing trust and or the Chatham Affordable Housing Trust Fund has now been cleaned up to read the housing trust, housing fund, I should say. I won't go into a prolonged detail on the rationale for the transfer fee. I think Rick Levitt summed it up very well at the start of the meeting and very eloquently, that it is a vehicle and a mechanism to support the ongoing funding mechanism to support affordable and attainable housing for Chatham for at least the next 10 years. And again, I'd like to remind folks that town meeting can change its terms, the amount, the threshold amount at any time at a town meeting that they so desire. So we also have the opportunity to extend it or not at the end of 10 years. So the town meeting will certainly get another shot at it should they, in their wisdom, vote to accept this this petition. Again, this is a home rule petition that needs to be approved by this board, the select board, and then go to our town meeting and be approved by our town meeting, and then would go to the state legislature, to the general court as a home rule petition, which then would need to be approved by them to become the law of the land, the law of the town. So got a ways to go here, even if town meeting approves it. So I'll end there. And I thank you for your forbearance and your willingness to have this being brought back, hopefully improved, and hopefully we'll meet with more acceptance by our board. I thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Dean and then Corey.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jeff. And I appreciate the changes that have been made. I just really wanted to, for the sake of completeness, understand that we did receive an email late this afternoon with an updated version of this, just for the benefit of the public. So I don't know whether, Jeff, you covered everything that was substantive in that particular version, but I wanted that to be clean on the record, that what we're being asked to vote on tonight is something slightly different from the packet, what was in the packet on Friday.
Yes, yes, thank you, Dean. And that change is really the reference to affordable housing, those two trust funds wrapping into one, the housing fund. That's the main change. That is the only change.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, I guess then we have Corey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, first I want to thank Jeff for bringing it forward. It's been a very healthy discussion, and the public has made great input on it. I truly appreciate the amendments that have been put into the document to address some of the concerns that I brought up at the previous meeting. I think it's more in line and more palatable for people who will support this. I've gone back and forth with some of the unforeseen consequences, but I've really kind of fallen in the position that we need to be aggressive and bold right now if we want to see the future for affordable, attainable housing. And this is a mechanism that the voters will have a chance to, vote up or down at town meeting. And it's exactly the place where it should be voted up or down. Let the public weigh in and support it and move it forward if they so chose. The only area I would like to ask for discussion purposes for a possible small amendment, my question is for our Section 8, the initial 10-year duration. 10 years is a very long time, and I'm just wondering, and I'm throwing this out for conversation, if a 5-year period would be more appropriate. And I'm saying that because if you do every 5 years, you keep the conversation current, and if the fee or tax or whatever we end up referring to it as is successful, you keep the conversation current and the review current, and you can renew it for another 5 years. At 10 years, I'm not saying it's going to be forgotten about, but 10 years is a very long span that I have concern that it's not going to get forgotten about, but you kind of lose track of time. Who's watching the time, the calendar for when we started reviewing it. I'm just wondering if a shorter 5 or 6 year time window is a more better mechanism to keeping the conversation current as we move forward with our actions. So I throw that out for conversation.
Okay, so you want to throw it out for conversation, but you're not going to make a motion on it. Is that what you're saying?
I would recommend make an amendment for 5 years for the initial 5 years.
Okay. Any discussion or second on what Corey is proposing? Peter, your hand's up.
Yeah, I was going to talk about something else, but I'll second it just to have the discussion.
Okay.
I'd like to hear what Jeff thinks first, and then if Jeff has any comments. If not,
well, the petition's written 10, and I think 10 evidences a major commitment to the program, so that's why I kind of went with 10. I also like the mechanism where the in the petition where town meeting can come back, and say, look, this is working, this isn't working at any time, and with a 2/3 majority say, hey, look, we want to change either its terms, we want to discontinue its use, we want to change its terms, et cetera. So, Nantucket's was written 10. I think 10 kind of is evidence of our commitment. So I would stick with 10, but I'm not. If the board feels otherwise and really feels strongly about it, then you could convince me.
Peter, Madam Chair, it's okay. I'm sorry. I jumped ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say something, but go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
You go first.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I have the same feeling that Jeff has. I remember going through in my mind saying, okay, we do have to aggressively address the whole affordable housing and attainable housing issue. I mean, it's if we look at housing costs and how they're increasing in the town, I think we're in a short period, which could be a year, of really large increases. And getting to $2 million, if you're at $1 million now, is not in 10 years. If you compound the interest and you just use not only the 10% or something a little bit less, you're not going to get to $2 million. But if you're 1.9, of course, you will. The question is, we need long-term investment, because we need a supply of attainable and affordable housings that'll be in appropriate places. And that means in a number of areas, we're going to have to have revenues to get land somewhere that happens to pop up. And we'll have to go at it at the market rate, or hopefully somebody may even donate it. We don't know. That kind of funding is something that's going to require, if we don't do this, we go back to the CPA for $1 million every year. I don't think that's sustainable. It cuts across. Maybe it is. I don't know. But if you look at what property costs are, it's going to cost a certain amount of money to do that. It's not a business case where we're going to buy something and then rent them out and make money coming back. This is an investment in people. So going around a corner, 10 years, I support it. However, if it means that we go to 7 or something less so that we get stronger support from the board, I would do that. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. I don't know if Dean has, hold on. All right, so I like the fact that there is a change of term option in it, and that we can go back to town meeting. And I'd really like to stick to the 10, because, we're like a lot of Cape and Massachusetts communities. We're at a real critical time, and there's going to come a point, and it's very soon, where Chatham is unsustainable in terms of housing for working families of a certain income, and retirees as well. Because, 02633 is an extremely desirable zip code, more than a lot of the other Cape towns. Some of our more expensive home sale transactions can help to fund our least expensive home buying opportunities. I mean, it creates a community connectivity. And I think that connectivity is a community moral and social recognition of an effort to support the community in which these individuals who of higher means who desire to live here, they can be part of the solution and not part of the issue and the demise of the very existence of the community in which they dwell. I mean, that's the bottom line for me. We really need to really think about what's in the future for our community on all of the things we're talking about with housing. And so I feel very strongly to keep it at 10, especially with that a change of term option. Corey, your hand's up.
No, I was just going to follow as a comment, because I admit sometimes I stumble in trying to get my point across. I fully agree with the commitment component. I guess I'm just trying to emphasize that at a 5-year anniversary, if this is successful, it is a great achievement for the town, in our goals. And then in 5 more years have that conversation to recertify or verify the efforts moving it forward, it keeps the conversation fresh. Where if we do it for 10 years before we have that conversation, which may not be an issue, but I just want to, if we're going to do this, we need to be bold and aggressive across the board. And I just want to make sure the conversation stays current over the next several years, that we don't lose momentum and the efforts that I think we're going to be putting forward. So that's the point I'm trying to make, is I just want to keep the conversation current, the interest current, the support current for taking these actions. So that's my thought process.
Okay, get it. All right. So we have a motion on the table to change or amend the document to read a 5-year term versus a 10-year term. Do we have any further discussion before we take a vote on it? All right, then I will take a vote. Corey?
Aye.
Peter?
Nay.
Dean? You're muted, Dean. There you go.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, Jeff?
Nay.
And the chair says nay. Okay, we're going to stick to 10 in the document. We'll vote to recommend placement.
Madam Chair, I move to place this article
Okay.
on the warrant.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and a vote, or unless there's any further discussion. I don't know if anybody has any further comment. Okay, let's take a vote. Corey?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Okay, so moved, and now we need a vote to recommend. A motion
Move to
to recommend. Move to
Motion to recommend, Madam Chair.
All right, Jeff, second.
Second.
Okay, let's take a vote. Corey?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Dean?
No.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair says aye. The motion moved 4-1-0. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for all the hard work on this, Jeff and staff, Jill and Katie, and anybody else that added into this. All right, let's go to our final, which is not an article, but it's the Nauset Beach Agreement with Town of Orleans. As you know, this is a year ago, we had a meeting and we reviewed the agreement and re-signed the lease for the agreement for a year. It's due to expire April 30th, 2021. So we need to review the agreement and request a joint meeting with Orleans, which I think we're trying to schedule for the last week of April. We really wish that we could be sooner, but it seems like our schedules are all very much in the same mode. So I think Dr. Bob is going to make us make a presentation on this. And welcome again, Dr. Bob.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, as you just indicated, the Nauset Beach Agreement is up for renewal at the end of this month. It was renewed last year for a 1-year term. Chatham requested a 3-year term. Orleans only wanted 1. And part of their reasoning was at the time they were concerned about the amount of vehicles that came into the Chatham area and raised a concern that we didn't have a lot of data on that. So in the intervening over the past year, we've gone ahead and collected some data, which was included in your packet. We did have a meeting of the Nauset Beach Subcommittee with Chair Davis and Selectman Dykens last week to review some of that information. And at that point, I was asked if we could have some updated aerial photos of what the condition of the beach currently looks like. So if you give me a minute here, I will share my screen and I will show you. We had some aerial photos taken of the beach over the weekend. So hopefully everybody can see the aerial photos. Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I always like to make
Yes.
sure. So this is the south tip of Nauset Beach, or North Beach as it's called in Chatham. And as I said, these photos were taken at high tide on Saturday, and we specifically took them at high tide. And you'll see why when we get a little further up the beach, so we have a better sense of exactly how much beach there is in the Orleans area. But this is right at the North Inlet. And you can see those little black dots that are there. Those were actually oversand vehicles, mainly campers, that happened to be on the beach at the time the photos were taken. And so this gives you a pretty good sense of how much beach there is in the Chatham portion. And roughly from the town line down to the tip, it's roughly just about a mile in the Chatham section. So now as we go a little bit further north, and you can still see a couple of those vehicles here, as well as the large intertidal area on the Pleasant Bay side there. And we've drawn in the approximate town line, which is just slightly right about where this grassy area is in here. So that blue line may be a little bit further south than the town line it actually is. But again, you get a sense of how wide and all the beach is in Chatham, and how much area there is for people to spread out. And then as you start to see further north in the Orleans section, the beach narrows up fairly substantially. And as you can see in this photo, which is a little bit more detailed from the town line north, there's been significant erosion along the Orleans section, and there is now a lot of scarping going on with the dune. And you can see that line that's shadowed there because of the sun angle, but that is a steep scarp. And you can see the high tide line is basically coming right up to where the existing dune is kind of sloughed down. And that's the high tide or storm tide lines as you go up into Orleans. And then further north in Orleans, you can see that in even more detail here, where you've got a steep scarp, and you can see the rack line running along. This is actually one of the cottages in Orleans, which is really losing its protective dune area. And then as we go even a little further up, actually, this is now this slide here, this photo here is actually looking to the south and from Orleans down into Chatham, and you really get a sense of how badly that front beach is scarped in the Orleans area, and how far up the rack line comes, which really limits the ability for people to park in the Orleans section. And then this last picture is just looking north from roughly the Poached Wash, which is this large overwash area. And then I've indicated roughly where the Nauset Beach parking lot is, which is barely visible here, to give you a sense that, there's a fair amount of usable beach in this stretch in Orleans.
Bob, can you go back to the last slide, please, and show the road, the inner road?
Yep.
Just so people have a better understanding that of how people are traversing. Probably
so
the other
here's
one. Yeah.
So here's the parking lot, and you come out of the parking lot on the south end, and then you basically follow along this line here, and you can see the road.
Yeah.
The inner road, as we call it, as opposed to driving on the front beach, which you're not allowed to do in the summertime. And you can see that road comes down. It kind of fades out a little bit once you get past the grass, goes through the overwash. And then if we go to this slide here, here you can see the road coming down, and basically, the road is potentially in rough shape in terms of the future, because that protective dune on the ocean side has really taken a beating. And that road follows right along the backside of that dune. So it won't take but a couple of major storms, to really put that road in jeopardy. And then it comes down further, it goes inland a little bit, so it's a little bit more protected. And then continues to come down right about in here. It's extremely narrow, where the protective dune is basically gone. And then it kind of moves inland a little bit, the rest of the way down. And then, when you get into the Chatham portion, the road tends to be a little further inland. And then, when you get to Chatham, it's pretty wide open, but we do have the demarcated road that comes down through here until you get to about exit 8, which is right here, kind of at the end of the grassed area. And then, there really is no necessarily well-defined road down at the inlet, although most users tend to stay on the ocean side because it's higher in elevation and tends to be drier. And then one of the other things that I wanted to show, which was not part of your packet, this is just a quick update of where we stand on the number of permits sold and the revenue that was generated by the sale of Chatham stickers. So remember, Chatham only sells stickers to Chatham residents. Orleans sells stickers to Orleans residents as well as the out-of-towners. So you can see here the number of stickers sold by year since 2013, as well as the revenue that has been generated from the sale of stickers. And two things occurred in 2018 that I just need to point out for the board. In 2018, we discontinued the seasonal sticker. Not that we ever sold a large number of those, but those were discontinued. So prior to 2018, you could get a sticker that really just allowed access on the beach in the late fall, winter, and spring. Those were discontinued. And also in 2018, we increased the fee, the price of the sticker. Historically, prior to that, it had been $40, and we increased the fee up to $60. So the resident fee was basically the same as being charged in Orleans. And so you can see in 2020, and these are calendar year numbers, we sold roughly $33,000 worth of North Beach stickers. And then in addition to that, we also received $75,000 from the town of Orleans as Chatham's share of the out-of-town stickers that are sold by Orleans. In accordance with the IMA for the last couple of years, the revenue for out-of-town stickers has been split between Chatham and Orleans. Chatham receives 25% of the revenue and Orleans retains 75%. And that's the way it's been the last couple of years and is in the current IMA. To address the question of vehicle counts in Chatham, and let me share my screen again quickly. We did collect some vehicle statistics last fall, fall of 2020, when the beach reopened following the seasonal bird closure, which generally goes from, early to mid-June up until, July, maybe August, depending on the birds and how much re-nesting and all is taking. We've tried to do a very good job the last couple of years of getting the birds in, protecting them so they nest once and then they leave. Because the problem is when they re-nest more than once, that always extends the season. So last year we were able to open things up right at the beginning of August because Paul Whiteman and his crew out on the beach had done a phenomenal job protecting the nest and getting the birds to nest and get out of there. So we undertook vehicle counts 2 times a day, basically during the daytime and then at night. And at the nighttime, we only did on the weekends. But the first part of the spreadsheet here shows the vehicle counts on representative days from the beginning of August through the Columbus Day weekend. And it shows you by count the number of Orleans resident, Chatham resident, non-resident, and self-contained vehicles that were counted on the Chatham Beach. Now, this was not a continuous count all day long. This was basically a snapshot in time. And so there may have been more or less vehicles on the beach at some other point during that particular day. But as of the time these counts were made, these were the counts that were shown. And then in yellow, we basically totaled those counts up and did a percentage, which basically shows that during that time period, 24% of the vehicles were Orleans residents, and this is in the Chatham portion of the beach. So 24% of those vehicles were Orleans residents, 16% were Chatham residents, 46% were non-residents, and 13% were self-contained. We don't have a breakdown of the self-contained in terms of Chatham, Orleans, or non-residents because at the time there wasn't a separate sticker. This year we are giving out separate stickers for self-contained vehicles, either Chatham sticker or Orleans sticker, so that we'll be able to get a better split on the self-contained vehicles. And then we also did night patrols on the weekends. And again, we weren't going into as much detail in terms of breakdown because, we don't want to disturb people when they're, in their campers or relaxing for the evening. But we do have counts indicating that 64% of the vehicles there were basically oversand or so-called day tripper vehicles, and 35% of the vehicles in Chatham were self-contained. So this helps to address some of the questions that were raised in prior conversations with Orleans about, how many people are actually using the Chatham portion of the beach and who are they? Are they Chatham residents? Are they Orleans residents? Are they non-residents in terms of what the potential split of the non-resident revenue might be? So with that, and then just the other thing that I wanted to bring to the board's attention that we highlighted in the memo, Orleans is considering raising the fees, and they're doing this as part of an overall increase in fees related to their beach program, because they're trying to make not only the Nauset Beach ORV program, but their overall beach program self-sustaining. So I included the Orleans fee notice. They're having a public hearing tomorrow night, as well as a sheet which shows you basically the increase in fees that they're looking for as part of this program. And hopefully you had a chance to review that. And you can see that some of the fees that are being proposed to be raised are fairly significant, and especially in terms of fees impacting the ORVs or the OSVs that are using the beach. And then just one last thing I wanted to touch base on, as I indicated earlier, we received approximately $75,000 from Orleans last year as part of our share of the IMA. We had roughly $33,000 in sales of Chatham stickers for a total of roughly $107,000. And our budget for beach management is up around $150,000. Now, we don't necessarily spend all that in a year because like last year, we were able to open the beach without implementing the HCP. But our budget for the entire beach operation is around $150,000. And so with that, I will turn it back over to you because I know, Shireen, you and Jeff were part of our discussions as the subcommittee.
So a couple of things, Bob, and I didn't ask you this question in the meeting, and I'm not sure if you know about the capacity of the beach. At what point does Orleans stop accepting vehicles onto the beach? Do we know?
There is a capacity limit of approximately 250 vehicles, but that has been open to some interpretation.
Yeah.
Our beach manager and their beach manager have had some discussions over capacity and, are the vehicles in Orleans, are the vehicles in Chatham? Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's that kind of a number. And, Orleans has indicated to us on some occasions that the beach has maxed out when quite honestly, we believe there's still room for more in the Chatham portion. So it's open to some discussion.
Okay. So if you look at in the packet and you look at the oversand use that Bob and Paul put together, And if you go down to the first yellow section and it says, you know, total Orleans residents, this is about who's in Chatham. Total Orleans residents, 24%. Total non-residents, 46%. 70, that's about 70% of the people using the Chatham section of the beach aren't Chatham people. Yet we're receiving revenue from the out of town tickets, stickers at 25%, correct? Is that what the Orleans
Right.
business?
Yes. Yes.
So I'm really, my whole thing is we're short on funding, technically funding the budget on this. And we are the desired area, or, you know, you go down to the end of that beach, it's God's country, and it's, you know, the best view in the world. It's just a really gorgeous place, and you can spread out. And it's a very desirable a place to go. And so, especially for campers, but, you know, we're talking about a bit of a skew on the revenue that I think that we should be talking about, perhaps having the discussion with Orleans about upping that 25%, because where our resources are out there in Chatham, taking care of the Chatham section as per the agreement. And so we should be probably receiving a little bit more money than we actually are of the outer town, at least the outer town tickets or stickers. There's a lot to this that, you know, the outer side of the beach, the back side of the beach, if you're running the inner beach and you go to one of the exits and you try to find a space to put your car, literally in the summer, it's vehicle, and everybody's just backed up. And, you know, as I said, you got a beautiful view. But if you go down to the end of Chatham, it's still crowded, but you have a little more breathing room. So people aren't, you know, the Orleans section isn't, you know, just doesn't have the ability to support the number of people that are getting permitted to get on the beach. And I think we have a good argument. We have numbers to address that in some way. We have our visuals, and I think maybe next year we should have some visuals that actually show the beach activity, perhaps some aerials during the time of that. So I think that when we go back to this amendment, whether we do it for a year again or not, I think we need to have that discussion with Orleans about an increase in the revenue share. We have good data to support it. But Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then Peter. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, Shireen, well said. I'm not going to echo your comments or, you know, repeat myself. I think number one, I did have a comment. Those photographs were stunning. They were just perfect. It just shows so well how Mother Nature has treated Chatham well, with the extension of the beach to the southern there, and just the demarcation of the high tide line and the scrap line there is just, it's stunning. There will come a point, I hate to say it, that you know, may be very difficult to get to Chatham's point, you know, Chatham, the southern point there. I think we have a very strong argument to make with Orleans that the vast majority, 70% of folks that are using Chatham's beach are not Chatham residents, and we ought to share a great, you know, a much higher percentage in the share for the non-resident fees. The increase in the fees for our residents, I'm not particularly interested in doing, so I'd like to hear their rationale. I think they have a whole town-wide effort on looking at fees, and this is falling into that sphere, if you will. But I'm not particularly hell-bent on increasing fees for our folks to get to the beach. Those are my comments. I look forward to meeting with them. You're on mute, Shireen.
What we're looking for tonight is a proposal to meet the week of probably the 26th, if the board's amenable to that. Jill will and Bob will make those arrangements. And based on any of the comments we have going forward, I think we want to open up the agreement, not just sign it off again, and have a good discussion about the strategies, you know, about the need. Peter, comments.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just, you answered my questions talking about the share. And also, I'm a little reluctant to raise our fees. I understand that Orleans, what they want to do with making their beaches self-sustainable. But if you look at our beaches, many of them, we're not charging to get in. And I'm not sure of what of all that Orleans is doing. My question was, why do they want to give us their comment in the summary sheet is they want to provide us with a flat fee consistent with what was done previously, but what was done previously is not the environment we're in now. Of course, they control entry into that, which gives them some kind of responsibility and maintaining and so forth. But I just looking at those pictures, I'm glad you did that. To me, is we have to maintain the beach our section of the beach. More people are going to be coming there. It seems to me reasonable. Of course, I'm from Chatham, but it seems to me reasonable that we get a larger percentage of the fees. So I'd like to hear what they have to say. And we've only been out there once. It's beautiful. It's a great place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments from the board at all? Corey? Any? Or Dean? No comments from Dean.
I agree with the previous stated comments, and I think we can have an open dialogue with Orleans and hopefully make this work for the upcoming season. The numbers definitely help our case.
Okay. All right. So we've got a consensus to set up a meeting and open up negotiations on this. Is that satisfactory for you and Jill and you and Bob? Is that satisfactory, or do you need a vote?
No, I think that's fine.
Okay.
We're all set. I know that they do meet on Wednesdays and we meet on Tuesdays, so I'll find out exactly what date we can meet and report back to the board.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Will accept. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Jill. I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So move, Peter.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Heard somebody. Okay. I'll take a vote. Peter?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair says aye. All right. Well, thank you everyone who participated tonight in the discussion and preparation of the meeting. And we're not out of the woods with COVID, so everybody please maintain some vigilance on being safe and staying masked and washing your hands. And hope you have a good rest of your week. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.